The massive chamber buzzed with voices from 47 different worlds. Ambassador Sarah Chen stood alone in the center, her simple black suit looking plain next to the colorful robes and gleaming armor of the alien representatives. Above her head, the dome showed stars from across the galaxy, each one representing a world that now wanted humanity gone. High Chancellor Vextar rose from his golden throne. His scaled skin caught the light as he spread his forearms wide. The Zephyrian leader had ruled this council for 300 years, and his voice carried the weight of ancient authority. When he spoke, the chamber fell silent. "The matter of humanity has been decided," Vextar announced. His words echoed through translation devices, reaching every being in the room in their native tongue. After careful consideration, this council finds that the human species poses a threat to galactic stability. Sarah kept her face blank, but her hands tightened slightly behind her back. She had expected this moment for months. The signs had been clear: trade agreements canceled, diplomatic meetings delayed, human colonies reporting strange ships watching them from the edges of their systems. Vextar continued, his voice growing stronger. "Humanity has expanded too quickly. Your terraforming methods damage natural ecosystems. Your military grows at an alarming rate. Your people refuse to accept the wisdom of older civilizations." A murmur of agreement rippled through the chamber. The Altarians nodded their bird-like heads. The crystalline Nexari chimed in harmony. Even species that had once been friendly to humanity now looked away from Sarah's gaze. "Therefore," Vextar said, raising his primary arms, "humanity will surrender all military vessels to this council. All colonies beyond the Sol system will be abandoned. All humans will return to Earth within 1 standard year. This is not a request. This is the will of the galaxy." Sarah had practiced her response many times, but the words still felt heavy in her mouth. "High Chancellor, humanity has always sought peaceful relations with all species. We came to the stars not as conquerors, but as friends seeking knowledge and trade." "Your intentions matter less than your actions," interrupted Council Member Thrakal, the insectoid representative of the hive worlds. "Your species breeds too quickly. You build too fast. You take risks that endanger everyone." Other voices joined in. The aquatic depth lords spoke of human pollution in their water worlds. The energy beings called luminants complained about human electromagnetic interference. One by one, they listed their grievances against humanity. Sarah listened to each complaint with growing sadness. Not sadness for humanity's fate, but for what these species had chosen to become. She had hoped for better from the galaxy's older civilizations. When the voices finally died down, Sarah spoke again. "I see that your minds are made up. But before humanity accepts these terms, I must ask one question." She turned slowly, meeting the eyes of every representative she could. "Is this truly about our actions, or is it about your fears?" Vextar's scales darkened with anger. "You dare question this council? I question the wisdom of forcing an entire species into exile, based on speculation about future threats." Sarah replied calmly. "But if this is your final decision, then humanity will comply." The chamber buzzed with surprise. Many had expected the humans to fight, to argue, to make threats. Instead, their representatives stood calmly accepting defeat. "We will withdraw all military assets from contested space," Sarah continued. "We will abandon our colonies and return to the Sol system. We will cease all exploration and expansion beyond our home system. This council has made its position clear, and humanity will respect it." Vextar leaned back in his throne, satisfaction evident in his posture. "The council is pleased by your cooperation. This decision serves the greater good of galactic peace." Sarah nodded slowly. "Peace is indeed precious, but let me be very clear about something." Her voice remained soft, but something in her tone made several representatives shift uncomfortably in their seats. "Humanity came to the stars seeking friendship. We offered trade, knowledge, and cooperation. In return, you have chosen to treat us as criminals for the crime of being different." She took a step forward, and her next words carried across the silent chamber. "We accept your terms because we still believe in peace. But understand this, you have made this choice, not us. You have decided that humanity cannot be trusted to exist alongside you. You have chosen fear over friendship." The silence stretched for long moments. Finally, Vextar spoke. "Your philosophical objections are noted. The decision stands. You have 1 standard year." Sarah bowed her head slightly. Then humanity will prepare for our departure. We ask only that this council remember, we did not want this outcome. We tried to build bridges, you chose to burn them. As she turned to leave, Sarah's voice carried one final message to the galaxy. The human message has always been clear. We came in peace. We hope to live in peace. But if peace is impossible... She paused at the chamber doors, looking back at the assembled representatives. Then we will adapt to whatever future you have chosen for us. The doors closed behind her with a soft hiss. In the chamber, alien representatives congratulated themselves on handling the human problem without bloodshed. Vextar was already discussing how to divide former human territories among the loyal species. None of them noticed the small smile that had crossed Sarah's face as she left. None of them understood the true meaning of her final words. They heard surrender when they should have heard a warning. In her private transport heading back to Earth, Sarah activated an encrypted communication device. The face that appeared on the screen belonged to President Maria Santos, leader of the United Earth government. It's done, Sarah reported. They took the bait completely. Full exile, 1-year timeline. Complete military surrender required. Santos nodded grimly. How many species voted for it? 43 out of 47. Only the Centauri Alliance, the Free Traders, and the Wanderer Fleet abstained. Everyone else wants us gone. And they believe we'll actually comply? Sarah's smile returned colder this time. They think we're a young species that got lucky with FTL technology. They see our fusion drives and kinetic weapons and assume we're centuries behind them technologically. They have no idea what we're really capable of. Good, Santos said. Then Operation Silent Thunder begins immediately. How long do we have before they expect our first withdrawals? 6 months for the outer colonies, full evacuation within 12. They're already making plans to claim our territories. Perfect. That gives us time to finish preparations. Santos leaned forward. Sarah, are you certain about this path? Once we begin, there's no going back. Sarah thought of the contempt she had seen in alien eyes, the casual dismissal of human rights, the assumption that humanity would submit without question. Mr. President, they made their choice when they decided we were too dangerous to exist as equals. Now they'll learn what dangerous really means. The communication ended and Sarah sat back in her seat. Through the viewport, she could see stars that humanity would supposedly abandon forever. But she knew the truth. Those stars would still be humanity's, along with many others. The galaxy had chosen war. They just didn't know it yet. Behind her, Nexus Prime Station grew smaller in the distance. Soon, very soon, she would return. But next time, she would not come as a petitioner begging for acceptance. Next time, she would come as the representative of the galaxy's new rulers. The humans had tried peace. Now the galaxy would learn about human war. 6 months had passed since the ultimatum. Across human space, the Great Withdrawal had begun, or so it appeared to the watching galaxy. Commander Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of New Normandy Station, watching the last civilian transport disappear into hyperspace. The massive orbital platform that had once bustled with millions of inhabitants now seemed empty and abandoned. Emergency lights cast long shadows through corridors that had once been filled with families, merchants, and researchers. That's the last of them, sir, reported Lieutenant Torres, checking her datapad. All civilians evacuated according to schedule. The Zephyrian inspection team arrives in 2 days. Jake nodded, but his attention was focused on the planet below. New Normandy had been humanity's crown jewel, a perfect garden world with crystal blue oceans and vast green continents. Now it would become another prize in the Zephyrian Empire's collection. What about the special packages? Jake asked quietly. Torres smiled. All deployed, sir. The inspection team won't find anything they're not supposed to see. 3,000 light-years away, Dr. Elena Vasquez submitted her final research report to the Galactic database. Her laboratory on Research Station Echo had been one of humanity's most advanced facilities, dedicated to studying alien biology, psychology, and technology. To outside observers, it looked like any other human scientific outpost being hastily abandoned. The Altarian observers cataloging human assets dismissed Dr. Vasquez's decades of work as primitive research. After all, humans had only been in space for 30 years. What could such a young species possibly teach the galaxy about xenobiology? They failed to notice that Dr. Vasquez's research had solved problems that had puzzled alien scientists for centuries. Her studies of Zephyrian metabolism had revealed critical weaknesses in their cellular structure. Her analysis of Altarian neural patterns had mapped every fear response in their species' psychology. Her examination of Nexari crystal matrices had shown how their entire communication network could be disrupted with the right frequency pulse. As she uploaded terabytes of supposedly basic research data, Dr. Vasquez allowed herself a small smile. The aliens saw only the surface of human scientific achievement. They had no idea that human research methods were centuries ahead of anything else in the galaxy. "Elena," called her assistant Dr. Park, "the transport is ready. All the research samples are secured?" "Every last one," Elena replied. The aliens monitoring the evacuation saw only standard biological specimens being removed. They didn't realize that those samples contained genetic markers from every major species in the galaxy, ready to be weaponized if needed. Admiral Liu Jiang coordinated the fleet withdrawal from the bridge of the UES Defiance. The massive human battleship led a convoy of 300 vessels away from the frontier worlds, apparently heading home in defeat. The Zephyrian fleet commanders watching the withdrawal noted the impressive size of the human force, but they weren't worried. Human ships looked powerful from a distance, but their technology was clearly inferior. Fusion drives instead of antimatter engines, kinetic weapons instead of particle beams, metal hulls instead of exotic matter composites. Admiral Zhang read the intelligence reports with amusement. The aliens saw exactly what humans wanted them to see. They observed the obvious fusion signatures and missile launches during human military exercises. They recorded the basic metal composition of human armor plating. They cataloged human weapons as simple mass drivers firing metal projectiles. What they missed was the nanotechnology embedded in every hull plate, capable of self-repair and reconfiguration. They failed to detect the quantum processing cores hidden within seemingly primitive computer systems. They had no idea that human kinetic weapons could be transformed into matter compilers, energy projectors, or even dimensional rupture devices depending on the ammunition loaded. "Admiral," reported Captain Williams from the sensor station, "the Zephyrian observers are maintaining their distance just as predicted. They're scanning us with everything they have, but they're not detecting the ghost signals." "Excellent," Zhang replied. The ghost signals were quantum-encrypted communications linking every human ship to a hidden command network. To alien sensors, they looked like random cosmic background radiation. In reality, they allowed instant coordination across the entire human fleet, regardless of distance or stealth conditions. "Sir, we're approaching the Sol system perimeter. All ships report ready for Phase 2 deployment," Zhang nodded. Soon the human fleet would seemingly disappear into their home system, defeated and contained. In reality, they would be dispersing to hidden bases throughout the galaxy, bases that had been prepared for years without alien knowledge. On Earth, President Maria Santos addressed the United Earth Council in what appeared to be a desperate emergency session. The media reported on humanity's shameful retreat, their forced abandonment of the stars, their reduction to a single world. What the media didn't know was that the Earth they saw was an elaborate facade. The real population centers, the true industrial capacity, the advanced research facilities, all of it was hidden deep underground or in stealth installations throughout the Sol system. The surface of Earth showed exactly what the aliens expected to see: a defeated species returning home with their tail between their legs, refugee camps for returning colonists, emergency meetings of desperate leaders, protests against the galaxy's unfair treatment. Underground, the reality was very different. Massive automated factories worked around the clock, producing weapons and ships using technologies the galaxy didn't know existed. The returning colonists weren't refugees. They were soldiers and technicians reporting for duty in humanity's secret military buildup. "The aliens are buying it completely," reported General Morrison, Jake's father and head of Earth's defense forces. "Their spy networks are reporting exactly what we want them to report. Defeated humans, collapsing morale, complete withdrawal from galactic affairs." Santos smiled grimly. "And our people in the field? All assets in place, Madam President. Dr. Vasquez's Biological Warfare Division is ready. Admiral Zhang's stealth fleets are positioned. Commander Morrison's deep cover teams are established on every major world. What about the timeline? 6 more months until the deadline. The aliens expect us to spend that time packing up our remaining assets and saying goodbye to the stars." General Morrison's expression hardened. They have no idea we'll spend it finalizing their destruction. On Nexus Prime Station, High Chancellor Vextar reviewed reports of the human withdrawal with deep satisfaction. The troublesome species was finally being contained. Their dangerous expansion stopped before it could threaten galactic stability. The human problem appears solved, reported his aide, a young Zephyrian named Kesvar. Their fleets have withdrawn, their colonies are being abandoned, and their research stations are going dark. Intelligence suggests their morale is completely broken. Good, Vextar said, settling back in his throne. I was beginning to worry they might resist. Humans showed such promise when they first achieved FTL travel, but they proved too aggressive, too unpredictable. Better to deal with them now than wait until they became a real threat. Kesvar hesitated. Sir, some of our analysts worry about their rapid compliance. The humans gave up very easily for such a supposedly aggressive species. Vextar waved a dismissive hand. Fear, nothing more. When faced with the combined might of 43 species, even humans know better than to fight. They're young, not stupid. Neither of them noticed the small maintenance robot cleaning the floors nearby. It looked like a standard station service unit, but its optical sensors were recording every word, every gesture, every detail of Zephyrian command procedures. The data would be transmitted through the station's own communication array, buried in routine maintenance reports. Deep in the station's lower levels, Commander Sarah Chen, now using the identity of a maintenance worker, monitored the intelligence gathered by her hidden team. For 6 months, humans had been infiltrating every major installation in the galaxy, preparing for the day when the shooting would begin. The aliens thought they were watching humanity's retreat. In reality, they were witnessing the largest military deployment in galactic history. Every evacuated colony had left behind hidden bases. Every withdrawn fleet had actually dispersed to secret staging areas. Every surrendered outpost concealed advanced surveillance and sabotage equipment. The galaxy had given humanity 1 year to withdraw. They had used that time to prepare for total war. In 6 months, the aliens would learn the difference between human surrender and human strategy. But for now, the charade continued. Humanity appeared weak, defeated, and broken. Their enemies relaxed, divided up human territories, and congratulated themselves on solving the human problem without bloodshed. They had no idea that the real human problem was just beginning. The Sol system had gone completely silent. No radio transmissions, no ship movements, no responses to diplomatic messages. To the watching galaxy, it seemed like humanity had finally accepted their fate and settled into quiet exile. Captain Zekriel of the Altarian Republic flew his patrol ship through what had once been human space. His mission was routine: verify that the humans had truly withdrawn and catalog any abandoned installations for later salvage. The bird-like alien captain found exactly what he expected to find. The colony world of Haven Prime showed no signs of recent activity. The orbital platforms were dark and cold. The planetary cities appeared empty, their lights dimmed, their factories silent. Scanner readings confirmed minimal life signs, probably just automated systems and a few caretaker crews. Everything looks normal, reported his navigator, Lieutenant Sektal. No hidden bases, no stealth ships, no signs of military activity. The humans really did leave. Zekriel nodded, making notes in his official report. The Altarian government had been skeptical of humanity's easy surrender. His people remembered too many wars where an enemy's retreat had been a trap. But the evidence was clear. Humanity had simply given up and gone home. What Captain Zekriel couldn't detect were the microsensors embedded in the asteroid fields, tracking his every movement. He couldn't see the stealth platforms hidden in the planet's magnetic field, recording his ship's capabilities and weaknesses. He had no way to know that his patrol route had been predicted months in advance, and everything he was allowed to see had been carefully staged. Deep beneath Haven Prime's surface, Commander Jake Morrison monitored the alien patrol from a hidden command center. The installation was buried 3 kilometers underground, invisible to surface scans and protected by layers of stealth technology that made it effectively impossible to detect. He's taking detailed scans of the orbital platforms, reported Sergeant Chen, watching the alien ship's activities. Should we be worried about him finding anything? Jake shook his head. Those platforms are exactly what they appear to be: abandoned human installations. But what he can't see are the weapon systems we built into the planet's core, or the fact that every piece of abandoned equipment can be reactivated remotely. On Earth, President Santos received updates from across human space. Each report was the same: alien patrols finding exactly what they expected to find, never suspecting the massive military buildup hidden right under their noses. Phase 3 is proceeding perfectly, reported General Morrison via quantum communication. The aliens are completely convinced we've withdrawn. They're already moving their own forces into our former territories. Santos nodded grimly. The hardest part of the plan had been the waiting. For 8 months, humanity had played the role of defeated refugees while secretly preparing for war. Every day of apparent weakness had been torture for a species that wanted to fight back immediately. What's the status on Dr. Vasquez's project? Biological weapons are ready for deployment, the general reported. Her research has identified critical weaknesses in every major species' physiology. When we're ready to strike, we can target their biology with surgical precision. And Admiral Zhang's fleet? All stealth ships are in position. The aliens think our entire fleet is bottled up in the Sol system. They have no idea that our real military forces are already surrounding their major worlds. Admiral Zhang himself was currently stationed in a hidden base inside an ordinary-looking asteroid, just 3 light hours from the Zephyrian homeworld. His ship, the U.S. Defiance, had seemingly returned to Earth months ago. In reality, it was an advanced stealth vessel that could operate undetected in the heart of enemy space. Admiral, reported his intelligence officer, Zephyrian High Command is planning to announce the redistribution of former human territories next week. They're calling it the Stabilization Proclamation. Zhang smiled coldly. Perfect timing. Let them gather their leaders together for the announcement. It will make our job much easier. Dr. Elena Vasquez worked in a laboratory that officially didn't exist, hidden in the outer asteroid belt of the Sol system. Her research had progressed far beyond what she had shared in her public reports. The biological weapons she had developed were works of art, precision instruments that could target specific species while leaving others completely unharmed. The Zephyrian cellular disruption agent is ready, she reported to President Santos during their weekly briefing. 1 microscopic dose will cause their scales to reject their underlying tissue. They'll literally shed their skin in layers until they die. And it won't affect other species? Completely harmless to everyone else. I've tested it against tissue samples from all 47 council species. Only Zephyrians have the specific cellular structure that reacts to the agent. Elena had similar biological weapons prepared for each species that had voted for humanity's exile. The Altarians would face a neural toxin that triggered permanent terror responses. The crystalline Nexari would encounter a frequency virus that shattered their communication matrices. The aquatic depth lords would find their water processing organs dissolving. Each weapon was precisely designed, genetically targeted and absolutely lethal to its intended victims. On Nexus Prime Station, Ambassador Sarah Chen continued her role as a maintenance worker, gathering intelligence and preparing for the coming storm. Her false identity had given her access to the station's most sensitive areas, including the council chambers and military command centers. Zephyrians are planning something big, she reported during an encrypted communication with Earth. High Chancellor Vextar has called for a special session of the Galactic Council next week. He wants to formalize the new territorial boundaries and establish permanent monitoring of the Sol system. President Santos listened to the report with growing anger. They're not satisfied with driving us out. Now they want to put us in a cage and watch us like animals. That's exactly what they want, Sarah confirmed. Vexitar has been telling the other species that humans need constant supervision to prevent future expansion. He's proposing a system of checkpoints around our solar system and regular inspections of our military capabilities. How many species support this? All the major powers. The Altarians think it's a reasonable precaution. The Nexari want to study human psychology to understand what made us so aggressive. Even some of the species that abstained from the original vote are now supporting the monitoring proposal. Santos closed her eyes, feeling the weight of command. The final decision was hers to make. She could still call off Operation Silent Thunder, accept humanity's exile and hope that peaceful coexistence might someday be possible, or she could give the order that would change the galaxy forever. Sarah, she said quietly, when is this special council session scheduled? 7 days from now. They're expecting representatives from every species to attend. It's supposed to be the grand celebration of galactic stability and the end of the human threat. Santos opened her eyes and Sarah could see the cold determination in them. Then they'll get exactly what they deserve. Send the activation codes to all operational units. Operation Silent Thunder begins in 72 hours. Understood, Madam President. What about the species that abstained from the original vote? They'll be spared, assuming they don't interfere. This is about justice, not genocide. The species that voted to exile us will face the consequences. Those that remained neutral will have the chance to join the new order. The communication ended, and Santos sat alone in her office, looking out at the stars that humanity was supposedly forbidden to claim. In 72 hours, the galaxy would learn the true meaning of human warfare. The aliens had forced humanity to withdraw, thinking they were eliminating a threat. Instead, they had given humans time to prepare the most devastating military strike in galactic history. Every month of apparent weakness had been used to position forces, develop weapons, and identify targets. The galaxy wanted to see what humans did when cornered. They were about to find out that humans didn't just fight back. They fought to win so decisively that their enemies would never threaten them again. In hidden bases across the galaxy, human forces received their activation orders. Sleeper agents prepared to strike. Stealth fleets began moving toward their targets. Biological weapons were loaded into delivery systems. The silence from the Sol system was about to be broken by the loudest declaration of war the galaxy had ever witnessed. The attacks began at exactly 0600 Galactic Standard Time across 17 star systems. They came not from space, where alien defenses could detect and intercept them, but from within the worlds themselves. On New Zephyria, Governor Tlandar was reviewing morning reports when the first explosions shook his capital city. The massive governmental complex trembled as what sounded like orbital bombardment rained down from above, but that was impossible. The orbital defense platforms would have detected any attacking fleet hours before they came into firing range. Sir, his aide burst into the office, panic clear in his scaled features. The orbital platforms, they're firing at the planet. But our crews are reporting that they're not in control of the weapons. Tlandar rushed to the window and looked up at the dawn sky. He could see the bright flashes of weapons fire coming from the defense stations that were supposed to protect his world. Have the platforms been taken over remotely? No, sir, that's the impossible part. Our security teams report that the platforms are still manned by our people, but the crews claim they never gave the order to fire. The weapons are operating independently. What Governor Tlandar didn't know was that the orbital platforms had been sabotaged months ago during their routine maintenance. Human infiltrators posing as technical contractors had installed hidden control systems deep within the station's computer cores. The Zephyrian crews were still in control of life support, communications, and basic operations. But the weapons now answered to a different master. Commander Jake Morrison emerged from what had appeared to be a solid wall in the governor's fortress. The advanced stealth technology that hid his team made them effectively invisible until they chose to reveal themselves. Behind him came 20 human soldiers, all carrying weapons that seemed to bend light around them. Governor Tlandar, Jake said politely, as if they were meeting at a diplomatic reception rather than during a hostile takeover. My name is Commander Morrison, and I'm here to accept your surrender. The governor's 4 eyes widened in shock. This is impossible. Humans withdrew from this sector months ago. Our sensors show no human ships in the system. Your sensors show exactly what we want them to show, Jake replied. We've been here all along, waiting for the right moment. That moment is now. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out on 43 worlds. Human forces that shouldn't exist struck targets that should have been impossible to reach. The Altarian capital found its communication arrays turning against them, broadcasting human propaganda instead of government messages. The Nexari homeworld watched in horror as their crystal cities began to vibrate at frequencies that shattered their delicate structures. Captain Zekriel, the same Altarian officer who had inspected the supposedly empty human territories, found himself under attack by ships that materialized from nowhere. His patrol vessel shuddered under weapons fire that seemed to come from empty space. Sir, we're detecting human energy signatures, his navigator reported, but that's impossible. There are no human ships on our sensors. Emergency transmission to Fleet Command, Zekriel ordered. We're under attack by invisible human vessels. Repeat, we are under attack by ships we cannot see. His communication was cut short as his ship's hull began to tear itself apart. The human weapons weren't just damaging his vessel. They were somehow convincing the metal itself to reject its own molecular bonds. Within minutes, his ship was nothing but expanding debris. Dr. Elena Vasquez monitored the biological warfare phase of the operation from her hidden laboratory. The weapons she had spent months developing were being deployed with surgical precision across the galaxy. Each one targeted specific genetic markers that were unique to individual species. On the Zephyrian worlds, emergency hospitals began reporting a strange new disease. Patients arrived with their scales simply falling off, as if their bodies were rejecting their own skin. The condition spread rapidly but seemed to affect only Zephyrians. Other species living on the same worlds remained completely healthy. The Altarians faced a different horror. Their entire species began experiencing uncontrollable terror responses. Warriors who had fought in dozens of battles found themselves paralyzed by fear of their own shadows. The neural toxin Dr. Vasquez had created was attacking the specific brain structures that allowed Altarians to control their fear responses. The biological weapons are performing exactly as designed, Elena reported to President Santos. Each species is experiencing symptoms tailored to their specific physiology. The Zephyrians are losing their protective scales. The Altarians can't control their fear, and the Nexari are losing their ability to communicate with each other. What about the species that remained neutral? Santos asked. No effects whatsoever. The weapons are genetically targeted. They can't harm anyone except the intended victims. On Nexus Prime Station, the emergency session of the Galactic Council was turning into chaos. High Chancellor Vextar had called the meeting to celebrate the successful containment of humanity, but instead, he was receiving reports of devastating attacks across the galaxy. "This is impossible," he roared, his scales darkening with rage and fear. "The humans have no fleet. Our intelligence networks confirm they're all trapped in the Sol system." "Sir," reported General Thekmar, head of Zephyrian military intelligence, "we're receiving communications from human forces across the galaxy. They claim to have taken control of 17 major star systems and are demanding the immediate surrender of all species that voted for their exile." Before Vextar could respond, the main doors to the council chamber opened. Ambassador Sarah Chen walked in, no longer disguised as a maintenance worker. She wore the formal uniform of a United Earth diplomatic officer, and her presence brought immediate silence to the chaotic chamber. "High Chancellor," she said with calm politeness, "I believe we need to discuss new terms." "Impossible," Vextar sputtered. "You're supposed to be exiled to Earth." "How are you here?" "I never left," Sarah replied. "For the past 8 months I've been living on this station, gathering intelligence and preparing for today. Your security is quite poor, by the way. You might want to look into that, assuming you survive the next few hours." The chamber erupted in panic. Alien representatives began shouting questions and demands, but Sarah's next words cut through the noise like a blade. "Operation Silent Thunder is now in effect," she announced. "Human forces have taken control of key installations throughout the galaxy. The species that voted for our exile are now facing the consequences of that decision." Admiral Zhang's voice echoed through the station's communication system. "This is Admiral Liu Zhang of the United Earth Fleet. Nexus Prime Station is now under human control. All alien military vessels in this system are ordered to stand down immediately or face destruction." Through the chamber's windows, the assembled representatives could see human warships materializing around the station. Ships that had been invisible moments before now revealed themselves. Their weapons trained on the alien vessels that were supposed to be protecting the galactic capital. "How?" whispered Council Member Threkal. "How did you hide an entire fleet?" Sarah smiled, and there was no warmth in it. "The same way we hid everything else. You see, the problem with being older and supposedly wiser civilizations is that you become predictable. You see what you expect to see and ignore what doesn't fit your assumptions." She activated a holographic display that showed the true scope of human operations. Hidden bases on dozens of worlds, stealth fleets positioned throughout the galaxy, sleeper agents in key installations, biological weapons tailored to specific species. The extent of humanity's preparation was staggering. "For 8 months you believed you were watching humanity's retreat," Sarah continued. "In reality, you were witnessing the largest military deployment in galactic history. Every evacuated colony left behind hidden forces, Every withdrawn ship actually dispersed to a secret staging area. Every piece of surrendered territory became a base for covert operations. Vextar tried to maintain his authority, even as his world collapsed around him. This is an act of war against the entire galaxy. You cannot hope to defeat all of us. We don't need to defeat all of you, Sarah replied. Only the species that chose to make us their enemies. The 43 species that voted for our exile are now facing targeted biological weapons, precision military strikes, and the complete disruption of their governments and economies. She gestured to the neutral species representatives. Those of you who abstained from the original vote or who voted against the exile proposal are free to leave. This war is not with you, but anyone who supported the decision to drive humanity from the stars will now face the consequences. General Thekmar tried to access his communication systems to coordinate a military response, but found all his access codes had been changed. Our entire command network is compromised. How did you infiltrate our most secure systems? Dr. Vasquez's research wasn't limited to biology, Sarah explained. While you were dismissing human science as primitive, she was mapping the psychological and technological weaknesses of every major species. Your encryption methods, your command protocols, your defensive strategies, we know all of them better than you do. As if summoned by her words, human forces began taking control of the station itself. Soldiers appeared from hidden passage. High Chancellor Vextar sat in chains in what had once been his own council chamber. The golden throne where he had ruled for 3 centuries now held President Maria Santos, who had arrived on Nexus Prime to personally oversee humanity's victory. The transformation was complete. The galaxy's former masters had become prisoners in their own capital. I demand to know how this was possible, Vextar snarled, his remaining scales dark with fury and humiliation. Your species is barely 30 years old. You have primitive technology. You should not have been capable of this. President Santos leaned forward in the stolen throne, her expression calm but her eyes hard as steel. That's your first mistake, Chancellor. You assumed our technology was primitive because it looked different from yours. You saw fusion drives and thought we were behind you. You saw kinetic weapons and assumed we were crude. You observed metal hulls and decided we were weak. She activated a holographic display that showed the true nature of human technology. Our fusion drives aren't simple nuclear reactors. They're matter converters that can reconfigure atomic structures in real time. Our kinetic weapons aren't just mass drivers. They're programmable projectiles that can become anything from armor-piercing rounds to matter compilers to dimensional breach devices. Our metal hulls aren't just protective plating. They're nanotechnological systems that can repair, reconfigure, and weaponize themselves. Ambassador Sarah Chen, now wearing the insignia of Secretary General of the new Galactic Council, continued the explanation. Your second mistake was assuming that a young species must be inexperienced. You forgot that humans didn't evolve in the safety of a peaceful galaxy. We evolved on a death world, fighting for survival against everything from viruses to ice ages to asteroid impacts. Dr. Elena Vasquez stepped forward, her biological weapons having performed exactly as designed. Your third mistake was dismissing human science. While your species spent centuries perfecting technologies you already understood, we spent decades solving problems you couldn't even see. Your biology, your psychology, your technology, we mapped all of it while you ignored our research as irrelevant. Admiral Zhang entered the chamber, his uniform bearing new insignia as Supreme Commander of Galactic Defense Forces. Your final mistake was believing that humans think like you do. You assumed we would respond to threats the way older species respond, with negotiation, compromise, acceptance of limitations. You didn't understand that humans don't just fight back when threatened. We fight to win so completely that we never have to fight the same enemy again. Vexitar looked around at the human leaders who now controlled his galaxy. This is madness. You cannot rule 47 species. They will never accept human authority. They don't have to accept it, Santos replied coldly. The 43 species that voted for our exile no longer have governments capable of resistance. Your biological weapons have crippled the Zephyrian leadership. The Altarian military is paralyzed by uncontrollable fear. The Nexari communication networks are shattered. Every species that opposed us is now facing complete social collapse. Through the chamber's windows, they could see the results of human precision warfare. Alien ships hung dead in space, their crews alive but their vessels completely disabled. Orbital platforms that had once defended the galaxy's capital now served human commanders. The space around Nexus Prime was filled with human warships that had appeared from nowhere, their stealth technology finally revealed in all its terrifying sophistication. The species that remained neutral or opposed our exile have been offered full partnership in the new order, Sarah continued. The Centauri Alliance has already agreed to serve as our intermediaries with the other neutral powers. The free traders are adapting their networks to serve human interests. The Wanderer fleet has offered to carry our messages to the far reaches of the galaxy. General Morrison entered with a data pad containing casualty reports. Military losses are minimal on both sides, he reported. Our biological weapons were designed to disable rather than kill, and our military strikes targeted infrastructure rather than population centers. Total alien deaths are under 50,000 across all affected worlds. Santos nodded approvingly. This was never about genocide. It was about teaching a lesson that would never be forgotten. Vextar spat in disgust. You think this makes you better than us? You've conquered the galaxy through deception and betrayal. We conquered the galaxy through superior planning and technology, Santos corrected. The deception was necessary because you forced us into a position where direct confrontation would have been too costly. You made peaceful coexistence impossible, so we chose war on our terms rather than yours. She stood from the throne and walked to the massive windows overlooking galactic space. For 8 months we played the role of defeated refugees. We withdrew our fleets, abandoned our colonies, and accepted exile to our home system. Every day of apparent weakness was agony for a species that wanted to fight back immediately. But we understood something you didn't. Sometimes you have to lose a battle to win a war. Dr. Vasquez consulted her medical reports. The biological weapons can be neutralized with treatments we've already developed. The Zephyrians will regrow their scales within a year. The Altarians' fear responses will normalize once the neural toxin is cleared from their systems. The Nexari's communication abilities can be restored with the right frequency therapy. You're offering to cure the plagues you inflicted? Asked Council Member Thrako, who had been remarkably quiet during the humans' revelations. Of course, Santos replied. We're not monsters. The biological weapons were designed to disable resistance, not cause permanent harm. Every species that accepts human authority will receive full medical treatment and assistance in rebuilding their governments. Admiral Zhang activated a star map showing the new political structure of the galaxy. The former Galactic Council is dissolved. In its place, we established the United Galactic Federation under human leadership. Species that prove they can coexist peacefully will be granted increasing levels of autonomy. Those that demonstrate continued hostility will remain under direct human administration. What about our colonies? Our trade routes? Our territories? Demanded another alien representative. All former human territories returned to human control, with reparations paid for the damages caused during the occupation period, Sarah answered. Beyond that, territorial boundaries will be redrawn based on species' ability to govern responsibly rather than their historical claims. Santos returned to the throne, her expression softening slightly. We didn't want this outcome. For 30 years, humanity sought friendship and cooperation with the galaxy's older civilizations. We offered trade, knowledge, and partnership. We tried to learn from your wisdom and contribute our own innovations. Her voice hardened again. Instead, you chose to see us as a threat to be eliminated. You forced us into exile because you were afraid of what we might become. Well, now you know what we became when pushed too far. The chamber fell silent as the full scope of humanity's victory became clear. In less than 24 hours, they had overthrown the galactic order that had existed for millennia. Species that had ruled space for centuries now answered to beings they had dismissed as primitive youngsters. The human message was always clear, Santos continued. We came in peace, seeking friendship and cooperation. We offered to share the galaxy as equals, to learn from each other and build something greater together. You chose fear over friendship, suspicion over cooperation, exile over acceptance. She stood once more, her final words carrying the weight of absolute authority. Now the galaxy will learn to live under human rule, until we are satisfied that the mistakes of the past will never be repeated. Prove that you can be trusted as partners rather than threats, and you will find no better allies than humans. Continue to plot against us or threaten our people. She didn't need to finish the sentence. The assembled representatives had seen what happened to species that made themselves humanity's enemies. Admiral Zhang stepped forward with the formal surrender documents. The terms are simple. immediate cessation of all hostile activities, acceptance of human authority in galactic affairs, cooperation in rebuilding damaged infrastructure, participation in the new Federation under human guidance. Sign these documents and your species will be treated as junior partners in the new order. Refuse and face the consequences of continued resistance. One by one, the representatives of the 43 hostile species signed their surrenders. They had no choice. Their governments had collapsed, their militaries were disabled, and their populations were facing biological weapons that only humans could cure. As the last signature was added to the documents, President Santos addressed the galaxy through the commandeered communication networks. Citizens of all worlds, this is President Santos of the United Earth Federation. The old order has ended. A new age begins today, an age where humanity will ensure that the mistakes that led to this conflict are never repeated. The camera pulled back to show Earth as it truly was, not a reservation world for defeated refugees, but the beating heart of a galactic empire built on